it's Julie from Heart to Hand Stamping, and welcome to my YouTube channel, and welcome to this video tutorial that I have for you that I've been promising you. And I told you that I only have at the moment this one stamp set from Kaszazz. It's the Stains Uncut set. It's a background stamp, and I thought I'd challenge myself to see what project I could come up with just using this stamp set and some ink. So here it is. This is the project I've come up with. It's a card, but it's got a little box pocket on the front here, and the way it works is that you pull this card out here, and there's another sentiment behind there, and then this acts as a little card. It undoes, and I'll undo it and show you. So this ribbon undoes, and you can write a little message inside here as well. I've just left it blank, but you could ink it, you could add lines, you could add more pattern paper in there if you'd like. So that goes in there, and it acts as a closure for the rest of the card. So now this part opens up, and I have another I've done this on my computer from the Bible. It's from Psalm 139, and then on the inside I've also created a insert that goes on the inside of the card as well. And this is all from various verses from Psalm 139. So then it closes like that, and then this card acts as the closure as well. And then I also have a card that comes out, so it's a double pocket, so it comes out here, and you can decorate that with an image or with another sentiment, and there's room to write on the back as well. And again, that can be inked, lines, or just writing, whatever you would like. And then that just slips in the side here, so that forms a double pocket on the front. So in the tutorial, I've actually broken it up into 3 parts because I've named this series One Kaszazz Background Stamp 3 Ways, and that's because I've tried to use it 3 ways. So in the first part, this part of the video, you're going to see how I created all this lovely background paper using this stamp. And then in the second part, you're going to see how I constructed this card, and also how I created this little frame, which I also used my largest stamp for, to make a little window. And then in the third and final part, you're going to see how I used my stamps to create this lovely flower and buds and leaves, and also how I created this butterfly using these stamps. So that will be in the third part. So I really hope that you like this project, and that you stick around for all 3 parts. And if you like the videos, I'd love it if you would click the like button. That really helps my channel. And also if you could subscribe and click the notification button, and then you'll always know when I release the next part. So I hope you enjoy this series. When I create a background, the very first thing I want to think about, of course, is the colors I'm going to be using. And so I use my handy little tool that I've made here, and I thought I'd show you how I go about choosing my colors. So I just flick through them like this, and today I'm going to be using Speckled Egg. That's one of the newer distress colors. And I also wanted to use Antique Linen. And because those colors are quite subtle, I thought I'd go for a darker color, so I went for Walnut Stain to do the edging. So there are my 3 colors there that I'll be using today. And I like this little tool because I can lay them side by side and see how they look. If you're interested in wanting to know how I made this, it was really easy. It's just laminated little pieces of card, but if you want to see how I made it, just leave me a comment below, and I'll do a video for you on that. So they're the 3 colors we're going to be using today. So I have those out ready. So I have my Antique Linen, and I'm just using that in the Distress ink. The Speckled Egg I'm going to be using is the Distress Oxide, and the Walnut Stain I'm going to be using also in both Distress ink and the Distress Oxide. So I wanted to actually point out today, this background is really, really simple. But the couple of things I just wanted to point out is that often we just go for the distress ink or the distress stain, but it's really nice to use them both, because the ink will, that will stay in the background, whereas the oxide will tend to sit on top. So you end up with a lovely dimensional look to your background. So it's nice if you can use both of them. Also, the other thing I wanted to show you is when we go to use background stamps, there's a couple of ways you can use them to get different intensities. So, of course, you know, the common way is obviously just to ink it up and stamp it down. But you can also get a lighter impression by doing a tone on tone, which you'll see me doing. So I'm going to be inking up in my light color of antique linen and doing a watercolor background, and then I'm going to stamp my background using the same color, but you'll be able to see it, but in a subtle way. So it works really well for backgrounds. The other way you can stamp, of course, is to do a second generation stamping. So I can ink up my stamp and stamp off onto a scrap piece of paper first, and then stamp it onto my background, and that gives me, again, a more subtle look. But the way I wanted to show you today is to actually use an ink blending tool to apply your ink to your background. So you just pick it up, and you'll see me do this later. You just pick it up and you dab it onto your background stamp, and that gives just another different tone again to your backgrounds. It's kind of an in-between, not too dark and not too light, and I really like it. It's also nice when you have a bigger all-over background stamp like this grunge one, because you can just partially ink your background here and there. And what that will do is give you that nice faded out kind of distress look as well when you're wanting to do your background. So using your ink blending tools with your inks onto your background stamps actually gives you a great deal of control as to where you want it to be. So you'll see me doing that later on. So you'll also need some water, and the ink blending tools I already told you about, and I'm working on a Teflon mat today also. So as far as paper goes, I'm just using regular copy paper. Nothing spectacular about it. It's just ordinary plain old copy of paper. And you might note, you'll need 2 sheets, by the way, but you might notice that I've printed on one of them. Now this is just because, as I've said in my previous video, I only have the one stamp at the moment, a background stamp, and I don't have any sentiment stamps. So to overcome that, I've actually printed out what I want on my card onto my paper, and I'm going to ink on the top of that. So I have an Epson printer that has waterproof ink, so I'm able to do that. So if you decide to do this, you'll need to test your printer ink to see if it's going to hold up to the water. But if you have some sentiment stamps, you don't need to do this step. You can simply just take 2 plain pieces of copy of paper and color them in the way I'm going to show you, and then later on I'll show you how you can use your sentiment stamps as opposed to having to print it out on the computer. The other reason I like to use my computer is that I prefer to create a lot of Christian cards, and it's really hard to find Christian sentiments in stamps. So more often than not, I'm finding I have to actually print out what I want to say on the card. So it's always an option for you, but I will show you later on how you can do both. Okay, so I'm actually going to proceed with this video and fast forward it, because it is a very simple technique and I'm sure you've seen it before many times, and I'm actually going to put some music behind it so it's nice and relaxing for you. And if you're interested, the music that I'm going to be playing is from an up-and-coming, very talented Australian artist. He goes by the name of HumanX. And he has very graciously given me permission to use his music to back my craft videos. So if you're interested in hearing more of his music, I'll leave all the information to he's on Spotify, so I'll leave the link in the description box and you can check out the rest of it. So I will go ahead and fast forward and relax and enjoy the process. So there we have it. We have our pattern paper finished. Really quick and easy way to create some pattern paper. Now you may have noticed that on this section, the printed section, the part that I'm going to be using for my text, I have actually cut off the bottom 5 inches of paper. So that's to create part of our card, and I wanted to add a bit of extra speckled egg oxide ink to that. So if you haven't printed yours, that's okay. Just slice off the last 5 inches or so of your paper and just splatter some of that ink over it. And we've got a nice light finish on our text, so we can see that really easily. And then you can see on this piece how the distress ink has sunk to the bottom, but we've got the oxide ink has really risen to the top, and it just creates that bit of extra dimension in our background. So the other reason I've chosen copier paper is the lovely texture you end up with. It ends up quite wrinkly, which is what I like, and it actually surprisingly stands up quite well to all the water that I throw at it. And the fact that it's nice and light also means we can layer with this without adding too much bulk to our card. So I hope you enjoyed that, and please subscribe and hit the notification button so that you will know when I upload part 2. This was part 1, showing how I used my background stamps as simply a background, and then in the next part we'll be looking at a different way to use them. So stay tuned for that.